Hi, welcome to my channel. I had a different video picked out for today, but I decided to change it when there was a terrible tragedy in Ireland last week. Aisling Murphy was a young woman who went for a run one afternoon and she was attacked and murdered. She was 23, she was a teacher, she was a musician, she was well loved, and no one can understand why this happened, and the entire country has just been in shock and mourning. The Garda, the Irish police, have some suspects that they're questioning. At the time of this video though, there have been no formal arrests, no charges brought against anybody. Hopefully we will have answers soon. And I know there's a lot of other cases of women in Ireland who have gone missing or murdered and they're still unsolved, and I thought I'd do a video just trying to highlight and raise awareness of some of these cases, some of these women that had tragic endings just like Aisling. I thought I'd talk specifically about Ireland's Vanishing Triangle. This was a group of women in the mid to late 1990s who all went missing. They were similar in age, similar circumstances about their disappearances, similar time frame and similar location, all in the eastern part of Ireland in Leinster. So it's very possible that it was a serial killer or killers, but we have no answers. It's still a huge mystery as to what happened. I'm going to talk about the first woman that went missing, and her name was Annie McCarrick. Before we start, I just want to do a disclaimer that everything I'm saying in this video I have just researched online and put it all together here. I mean absolutely no disrespect or offense to anyone that I'm going to talk about in this video, and any of the suspects I'm not going to give their real names because there's never been any formal charges brought against anybody. Annie was born and raised on Long Island in New York. Her grandparents had come to the US from Ireland, so she was raised with a lot of Irish culture, a lot of Irish traditions, and she felt a real connection with Ireland, so she couldn't wait to come and visit. So in the late 1980s she moved to Ireland to study, and she just fell in love with it. She was very outgoing, so she made a lot of friends, she loved the lifestyle, and she just really enjoyed her time here. So when her course ended, she went back to the US, but she missed Ireland, and in early 1993 she moved here, and she told a friend in the US that she felt like this move was going to be permanent. She wanted to stay here. She loved Ireland. And she moved into an apartment with two friends in Sandymount, and she got a job as a waitress in a local cafe. Sandymount is a seaside town just south of Dublin City. It's very upscale and somewhere you would definitely feel safe, and Annie actually said that to a friend of hers in the US, that she felt a lot safer in Ireland than she ever felt in New York. The day Annie went missing was a Friday, and it started off just like any normal day. She had the day off work, so she was planning to run a few errands. She might go on a walk that afternoon. It had been her birthday a few days before, so she was planning on having a dinner party the next night, the Saturday night, and have two friends over for it. And then her mum was flying in to visit her the following Friday, so she had a lot of plans. That morning, her two roommates said goodbye and left. They were both going home to their families for that weekend, so Annie had the apartment to herself. She went to run a few errands. She went to the supermarket to pick up some groceries. She went to the bank, and then she went to make some phone calls from a phone booth. Mobile phones weren't common back then, so if you wanted to call people, it would often be from a phone booth. The first person she called was one of her friends to confirm the plans for the dinner party the next night. The next person she called was her friend Anne, and she told Anne she wanted to go for a walk that afternoon in Enniskerry or Wicklow Mountains area, and did Anne want to join her. Anne had hurt her ankle, so unfortunately she couldn't join her. They are the two phone calls that we know for definite that Annie made. We don't know if any further phone calls were made, none that we know of, but it's a possibility that when Anne said she couldn't join Annie, that Annie just decided, all right, I'll just go for a walk on my own. But she might have made another phone call to make arrangements to meet someone else, and that is the big question. What was her plan? Was she planning to meet someone else, or was she going alone? After she made those phone calls, she went back to her apartment, and it appears she left her apartment in a rush. The groceries that she bought were never put away, which her friends say was very unlike Annie, especially because there were some perishables in the groceries, so things that should have gone in the fridge. So that was very strange that she left those in the grocery bags, didn't put them away. And also she left some wet clothes in the communal washing machine, which again was not like her. So it appears she left in a rush, but the question is, why did she leave in the rush? It might have just been a case of she realized it was getting so late, she just wanted to go, she wanted to catch the bus and just get going. It was strange though that she wouldn't just take the time and put the groceries away. Another theory is that she had a plan to meet someone, and you know, if you're meeting someone, you can't be late for them, especially back then when there were no mobile phones. If you say you're going to meet someone at a place at a time, you can't text them to tell them you're running late, you can't call them to say I'm getting a later bus. So maybe that's why she rushed out the door. So she left her apartment about 3 p.m. and a plumber saw her leave. He saw her get the bus, they waved at each other, and she got one bus to go from Sandymount to a nearby town, Ranelagh, where there was the bus that would take her to Enniskerry. Enniskerry is a village in Wicklow, which is south of Dublin, and it's a good base for walking trails. It's right by the Wicklow Mountains, and there's a lot of different places you can go for walking around there. So she got the bus to Ranelagh, and then in Ranelagh she got the 44 bus that would take her to Enniskerry. And we know that she was definitely on that bus because one of her work colleagues saw her on the bus. And the work colleague saw her get on the bus and tried to get her attention, but Annie went to the top deck of the bus and the work colleague, sat on the bottom of the bus. They never had any chats, which is such a pity because if they had chatted, we might know, was Annie meeting someone? Who was she meeting? Where exactly was she planning to go? Because whatever plan she had is a mystery. We don't know what her plan was. The friend got off the bus at Milltown, which is a few stops before Enniskerry, and Annie was still on the bus. We assume that she did get off the bus at Enniskerry, but that was the last confirmed sighting of Annie. There are a few potential sightings, but that was the last. It was definitely her. The next day, Annie's two friends turn up to her apartment as planned for the dinner party, but there's no answer. They're ringing the doorbell, they're knocking, and Annie is not there. And they're concerned because this is not like Annie. So they wait a while, she doesn't show up, and the next day they go to her work to make sure she's there and she's okay. And her work tell them that she never turned up for her shift the day before. So at this point, the friends realize something's wrong. So they call her parents in the US and say, Annie is missing, no one can get in touch with her, we don't know where she is. Annie's father said he immediately knew something was wrong. Annie's mum was due to fly out on the Friday, but she changed her ticket and she got on the next available flight to Ireland, and Annie's dad flew out not long after that. As soon as Annie's mum, Nancy, arrived in Ireland, she went straight to the Garda to report her daughter missing. An official investigation was launched immediately, but they were already at a disadvantage because it had been days since Annie was last seen. So if they're appealing for witnesses, not only are people, you know, after a few days, your memory, was it that day? Did I see them here? You know, memories are going to fudge a little bit. But also, whoever did something to Annie had the entire weekend to cover their tracks, to hide any evidence, dispose of her body, create a fake alibi. So already the investigation is at a disadvantage. And they searched everywhere. They searched Enniskerry, the Wicklow Mountains. Well, I mean, it's such a huge place, you can't search everywhere, it's impossible. But wherever they searched, there was no trace of Annie. There was huge publicity about this because this was very unusual in Ireland for someone to just go missing like that. So they appealed to the public and they had a lot of phone calls. You know, people wanted to help, they wanted to give information. I might have seen someone that looked like her here in Donegal, or you know, there was an American here in Mayo, and these were all around Ireland, but they had to investigate all leads. So this took a lot of time, and they were focusing on areas outside of where Annie was last seen. All of these leads, all of these phone calls led to nothing. None of those people appeared to be Annie. And Annie's parents were a little bit frustrated with the investigation. They thought it was going a little bit slow. So they reached out to the American embassy, and the American embassy advised them to hire their own private investigator. So they hired Irish private investigator Brian McCarthy, and he was going to do his own private investigation alongside the Irish Gardaí doing their public investigation. And both of them got a lot of leads, they got a lot of potential sightings. They were on kind of the same tracks, but both of them met dead ends. Brian McCarthy said they pulled out all stops. They got people over from Scotland Yard, but it was like she just disappeared off the face of the earth. There was no sign of her, no body, no clothing, no shoes, not a hair, and there was nothing that they could go on other than some potential sightings. The first potential sighting was in the post office in Enniskerry at 4 p.m. and that would have been when Annie arrived at Enniskerry, so it's very likely that it was her. The post office clerk said someone matching Annie's description came in, bought 3 local stamps and left. Annie's mum Nancy though said it didn't sound like her. She said why would she be buying local stamps? She only ever sent letters internationally, so it was odd that her daughter would be buying local stamps in Enniskerry. So that potential sighting, we don't know. Was it her? Was it not her? The next potential sighting is Johnny Fox's pub. This is a well-known pub in Ireland. It's known as the highest pub in Ireland, and it's very Irish traditional, so it's very popular with tourists. And a few weeks after Annie went missing, there was the public appeal, and they put her photo out. They were asking had anyone seen her, and the doorman in Johnny Fox's said, I saw her that night. And his recollection of what happened was that night she was there with a man, and the two of them tried to come into an area that was you had to pay to get into. You had to pay £2 to get in because there was a live music show. So he stopped Annie and he said, £2 please, and she was surprised. She didn't know you had to pay, so she kind of went looking in her bag for money, and the man that she was with said, don't worry, I'll get this, and he paid for the both of them. And the doorman saw them both walk in and walk across the room to the far side, and he didn't see them leave. He didn't see any more other than that. He described the man as being around 5'8" to 5'10". He was clean shaven, short brown hair, athletic build, and in his mid-20s, so same age as Annie. So if that was Annie, the big question is, who was that man? Was this a friend that she had arranged to meet? You know, when she hung up the phone to Anne, did she call someone else and make a plan to meet someone? Was it this man? Was it possible that this was someone, a stranger that she just met on her walk? Maybe she met him right there at the door to Johnny Fox's. A lot of people think that that definitely was her at Johnny Fox's. Some people are a bit skeptical. They don't really think it was her. One girl came forward saying she fit the description. She was there that night. She was American, and people might have confused her for Annie, but she said that that interaction with the doorman didn't happen because she was there with her mother and she paid her way in. No one paid for her. So I don't know, there's some confusion. Maybe it was Annie, maybe it wasn't, but Brian McCarthy does not think it was. He thinks that it's very unlikely that that was her that night. Johnny Fox's is about an hour-and-a-half hike from Enniskerry where she was, and by the time she would have arrived at Johnny Fox's would have meant she was walking in the rain, in darkness and cold. He just said that wasn't her. Like, he does not think that she was there that night, so that's a mystery. There is a theory of who that person was with her in Johnny Fox's, if that was her in Johnny Fox's, and this was put forward in a book in 2014, and apparently the man she was with was an IRA member, and the IRA is the Irish Republican Army. And they got chatting, and he was telling her all about some of his stories with the IRA, and she was very impressed. And because she was so impressed, he was telling her more stories and divulging more information that he shouldn't be telling. And at the end of the night, he realized, I have said way too much. I cannot let her leave with all of these secrets that I've spilled. So he said, come on in my car, I'll give you a lift to Dublin. She got in the car, but instead of going to Dublin, he brought her further into the Wicklow Mountains, and he shot and killed her. And the next day he told other members of the IRA what happened, and they came with him to take her body where he had hidden her and bury her in a new location and hide all evidence. This theory, I don't think too many people believe this theory. I think most people are of the mindset that it was a serial killer and doesn't really fit in with all the other women that went missing. So yeah, I don't know. There have been a few suspects over the years. Probably the main suspect and the person that I think most people in Ireland would point their fingers at is a well-known Irish predator. He was arrested in 2000 for the rape and attempted murder of a woman in the Wicklow Mountains. And when he was arrested and jailed for this, all of the women vanishing suddenly stopped. There was no more women disappearing. So a lot of people say that's proof that that was him. There has never been any proof, there's never been any evidence, there's never been anything to tie him to these women. The Gardaí did question him and he wouldn't speak about it, he didn't say anything about it. In 2008, 2 more men were arrested as suspects and they were brought in for questioning, and their names were never released. All we know about them is that they were living in Wicklow at the time and they had no previous criminal records. Nothing came of it. We haven't heard any more about it, and it was back in 2008, so I think that that pretty much went dead. I don't think we're going to hear any more about them. In 2020, a team got together to re-look at this case and take a fresh look at everything. The team included Brian McCarthy, the private investigator. It included Annie's uncle, an FBI former agent, and the family lawyer who had been with them from when it first happened in 1993. So the team got together and they looked at everything, and they became aware of a statement that was made to Gardaí in 1993 that they had never known about before, and this changed everything. Margaret Wogan was a woman who worked in Poppy's cafe in Enniskerry, and she said that Annie came in with a man and he asked her did she want a cake. She wasn't sure. He insisted. She got the cake and then they left. And she told police this, but for some reason she was never brought in for a formal statement. She wasn't asked to assist with the e-fit sketch of the guy she saw, and she has passed away since then, so unfortunately she's not around to share that information today. But when the team found this out, they said their entire timeline changed and the prime suspect that they had matched everything that Margaret said. So they decided they were going to come to Ireland and they were going to close this case. They were going to get to the bottom of it in late 2020, but COVID happened and the trip had to be postponed. Then in 2021, just a few months ago, another theory emerged that a Spanish serial killer could be the suspect. This guy, he brutally raped, tortured and murdered 3 women in Spain, and then he went on the run. The police in Spain couldn't catch him, but he was found on a boat as a stowaway from Spain to Ireland, and the captain of the boat held him for Irish police to come and arrest him as soon as they arrived in Ireland. The Gardaí came and he was gone. He managed to get away again. And the day that he would have arrived in Ireland was March 23rd, 1993, 3 days before Annie went missing. And where he would have gotten off the boat was extremely close to Sandymount. So there's a good chance that he crossed paths with Annie. So one thing the team are sure of is that it was someone that just wanted to kill. They don't think there was any motivation behind it other than they had a hunger to hurt and kill. And unfortunately, Annie was an innocent victim. They think it was a serial killer who went on to target more women from Ireland's Vanishing Triangle. Annie's father has passed away, but her mother has said all she wants is to bring her daughter's body home. And I think it's really important to keep these stories alive, keep these women's names alive, try and raise awareness, because you never know what someone could remember, if there's any tips that might come in that can help solve this. And it would be great if Annie's family got some closure and found her, or at least found out what happened to her. And I'm going to do more videos on the other women that went missing in Ireland's Vanishing Triangle, so if you don't want to miss those, please subscribe. And that's it. Thank you for watching. Bye.